vacant lot next door. Why not go there and, if it really is the vacant lot, why not plant a garden?
Once planted, the garden will take on a life of its own. And what happens then could shape the future of our species. Hundreds of years into terraforming Mars, pine trees are taking in carbon dioxide and exhaling oxygen, slowly turning the atmosphere into one that may someday be breathable by humans. And as conditions improve, so will the potential for a more diverse biosphere.
Earth's gift is the diversity and richness of its biology, and we can share that gift with Mars. And so it doesn't have to reinvent all this biology. It doesn't have to reinvent flowering plants. It doesn't have to reinvent mammals. It doesn't have to go through the dinosaur phase and get whopped by an asteroid and wipe them all out. They can do quickly what's taken us a long time to do.
The lesson so far from the Orizaba tree line is that nothing exists on its own in a complex ecosystem. Trees grow where it's warm enough and wet enough for microbes to produce nutrients in the soil. And microbes thrive where trees and other plants cycle organic material back into the ground. For McKay, investigating the links between a living biosphere in Mexico and a potential biosphere on Mars opens a window on the nature and the future of life.
These are questions that I think are very deep and very important, and to me they connect to this mundane detail of making this measurement and that measurement in a glorious sort of way. Planetary science gives one an opportunity to think in terms of millions of years or hundreds of millions of years, and to think about what's going to happen to the Earth, what's going to happen to Mars, the question of the future.
McKay calculates that it could take 100,000 years for trees to transform an icy blue Mars with a carbon dioxide atmosphere into a warm, green planet with enough oxygen for humans to breathe. But that's with present-day technology. Future terraformers may find a faster way.
We are in the position of a 20th century mind trying to solve a 22nd century problem. 200 years from now, and they'll say, wow, these guys, they lived in the second half of the 20th century and they're talking about terraforming Mars. How prescient. But doing it with fluorocarbon gases and green plants, how 20th century can you get? They will accomplish this with 22nd century technology.
We can't predict exactly what a fully terraformed Mars would look like, how warm, wet, and diverse it might become. Water will fill low-lying basins, probably frozen at higher latitudes in the winter and open in the summer. High elevation terrain may be cold desert and dry grassland, and the highest, like the summit of the 85,000-foot Olympus Mons volcano, will be a reminder of what Mars was like before terraforming. But what happens to a Martian biosphere over thousands of years can be no more than a guess.
Where does Mars go at the end? It's a question I think about a lot. I think it's clear that Mars will go to this. It'll go to forests and trees. But where will those trees then take the planet? We won't have any control over that. Mars will follow its own evolutionary trajectory. If it follows the trajectory that Earth followed, then the oxygen will build up and it'll become a planet suitable for life like us. But maybe Mars isn't going to go quite that way, and it's going to end up moving in a path that we can't predict. It's not a problem if Mars has a mind of its own. It's a good thing. And for us as humans, it's a good thing because we will learn more about planets than by having just another exact copy of the Earth.
It may be 50 or 100 years from now, but eventually, humans will be living on Mars. And it's not too soon to consider the choices we'll face when we get there.
That's fascinating to me, the notion that we as a species can ask that question. What are we going to do when we get to Mars? I want to see that dialogue happen. I want to see us as a species discussing it because we're on the verge of getting to Mars. We can see that. That's not something for 500 years in the future, some distant new technology. That's us. We're going to Mars.
It's the nature of humans to explore, to investigate everything within reach. It's the nature of life to fill every available niche. And Mars will someday be available.
Just as birds transport the seeds of life to barren islands and turn them into lush places instead of just barren rocks with a few bacteria on them, we're the kind of bird, as it were, that can take the seeds of life from Earth and transport it to the barren islands that exist in space right now and turn them into bountiful, living worlds. So I think we will do that someday. We'd be less than human if we didn't.
Along the way, we may learn something about how living planets work and how to keep them alive.
The primary benefit the citizens of Earth will derive will be knowledge. And it'll be knowledge that may also have practical benefits in managing our own planet. No matter what we do in space, we are going to have to manage the Earth. And Mars is not an excuse to mismanage the Earth. In fact, we have to view it the opposite. Mars is part of the lesson plan in learning how to manage the Earth.
Mars lost its early atmosphere in part because it was small and lacked the internal heat necessary to keep it going. A terraformed Mars would eventually suffer the same fate, but it would happen very slowly, over tens of millions of years.
Eventually, Mars will lose its atmosphere. It won't be habitable forever. But then nothing is forever. Even the Earth won't be habitable forever.
In the far distant future, as our aging sun grows larger and hotter, the inner planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, will be burned to a crisp. If anyone still lives in our solar system by then, they will have long since moved on to better neighborhoods. Perhaps one of the moons of Saturn, like Titan, or farther on to another star system. If so, Mars may be the place where their distant ancestors first learned how to live on another planet.